This is Notes in the Margin, a podcast for people who are super excited about writing their non-fiction book, but perhaps, just perhaps, aren't quite doing it. If you always feel called to tile the bathroom or clean the toilet instead of writing your book, you are in the right place. Your host, Vicky Quinn Fraser, has been there, done that, and has literally written the book about it. Join Vicky and her husband Joe as they make notes in the margin about creativity, writing techniques, publishing, and general shenanigans, and get tips and tricks to help you write your book. Hello and welcome to the Notes in the Margin show. I'm Vicky Quinn Fraser. This is my husband Joe, and also joining us tonight is Joe's raisins.
Hello. I've eaten all the raisins apart from this last one, so this is the last raisin.
This is the last.
I'm sorry, Vicky.
You've eaten all my raisins, and now people can hear your gross chewing noises. So if you have misophonia, I'm really sorry. Welcome to this week's show. Thanks for being here, Joe.
You're very welcome.
I am extremely tired. And I've just done an hour's handstand training on top of my 5.5 hours sleep and my extremely productive week. So I may fall asleep halfway through this podcast.
That'd be great.
I think that would be good for radio. Good
Excellent radio.
Yeah. So this week, we are going to be welcoming our robot overlords. But before we do that, Joe, what are you reading?
I'm in the back fifth of Leviathan Wakes by James Corey.
Are you still enjoying it?
Yes.
Good.
I am. And I believe there are many more books to follow. So I think it might be a bit of an epic.
Cool. Well, I will look forward to digging into that at some point. Will I like it, do you think? Yeah, the kind of thing I like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit sci-fi. It's a bit dark. It's a bit moody.
Okay. Well, I'm feeling quite moody right now. I'm tired.
Okay.
I am reading Snuff by Terry Pratchett. I'm, as ever, gradually working my way through the Discworld series for the 53rd time.
Cool.
Although I think I must have read Snuff a long time ago when it first came out, and then only once because I actually don't remember it very well.
No.
It's a Commander Samuel Vimes novel, so I always like those.
Yeah, City Watch.
City Watch. It is City Watch, but he's on holiday.
Oh, okay.
So he's at his country pile with the Ramkin.
It's his wife's country pile, really, isn't
country
it?
pile, yeah. Well, no, because she signed literally everything over to him, and now he's like the most reluctant rich person in the world. So yes, I'm reading that. It's great. I'm also reading non-fiction. Many non-fiction, but the one that I'm going to mention right now is a book called The Art and Business of Online Writing by Nicholas Cole. He is one of the chaps who is running the Ship 30 for 30 thing that I'm doing. And he's got a really interesting story. I'm really enjoying this book. It's very easy to read, which doesn't surprise me because he writes online. So it makes it really easy to read. But he talks about how he got started. And he started blogging on a gamer site called Game Riot. He was 17. He was obsessed with World of Warcraft, I think, and some other games. And he just started blogging, and he became quite quickly the most read blogger on that site. And then he decided that he was going to gamify everything because he's a gamer. So he was like, right, I'm going to become the best online writer in other sites as well. And he went and started doing online writing in other places, but then graduated from college after doing some creative writing and disagreeing with his teachers who were like, oh, this online thing is a fad. And he was like, okay. And he then decided, somebody suggested he had a look at Quora, and decided that he was going to answer a question every single day on Quora for a year. He did that, and he became the absolute most read person on Quora to the point where he got invited to their events, to speak at their events. He landed on the front page of Reddit after that. So it's just basically, it talks about his journey in online writing and, how he has built this business. And whilst I am a writer with an everyday writing habit, I'm not a writer with an everyday online publishing habit, which is why I'm doing the Ship 30 thing. And I want to learn a bit more about how I can use stuff like that. So I was going to start in February, and I've just realised that it's February today.
It is February today. Pinch punch.
Oh, getting a kick. That sounded terrible. I was going to say, I was going to start writing on Quora. Maybe that ship has sailed.
My ship might have sailed. Quora is, in my experience, one of the least reputable, most nonsensical collections of people's thoughts.
I think that's a real shame. I think that depends on what you're looking at, because I know my buddy Julian, hi Julian, he's still killing it on Quora.
Yeah?
Yeah, so maybe it depends on your niche, maybe it depends,
I guess,
what you're writing, and you kind of follow people on there, don't you? So I guess people,
I don't know. I mean, it just pops up in search results every now and again, and it's one of the places that I will actively avoid.
Okay.
Just because my experience is it's nonsense mostly.
I feel like Reddit could be good, but I feel like Reddit is also a cesspit, depending on where you go.
Reddit's pretty cesspitty, yeah.
Yeah, but the Reddits that I subscribe to are really nice. They're really friendly. Anyway, so that's what I'm reading. It's a good book, and I recommend it. He doesn't just talk about Quora, by the way. He talks about all sorts of stuff. Twitter is his thing now. So, but yeah, so that's what I'm reading. What's been going on this week at the Dingle?
Toilets.
We fitted a toilet. It's exciting.
We discovered that a back-to-the-wall toilet is an awkward thing to fit if your wall is not, in fact, perpendicular to your floor.
Yeah, there was a big gap.
There was gaps, and you could choose where you wanted the gaps, but there was gaps.
And I had got to the point where I was just like, I don't fucking care, just put it in. And you were like, no, there must be no gap.
You really can't have a gap down the back of the toilet.
No, you are. And now I have stepped away from the task. You are quite right.
Yeah. So we rebuilt that wall, I don't know, 5 times.
That makes it sound...
We took a panel off and kept fettling it until it fitted properly.
Yes, that's
until
what we did.
Until it was vertical and perpendicular.
Yeah. So that's what we did. And the bathroom is still ongoing and never-ending.
Never-ending bathroom.
Yeah. I feel like we're getting closer, but also it feels further away. You know when you're really tired and you're kind of walking towards something, but the perspective stretches?
Yeah.
It feels like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh, speaking of perspectives and things, I was just doing my online handstand class, and they get us to kick up on both... Oh, that was a hiccup, sorry. They get us to kick up on both sides. And so most of us have a preferred side to do things, right? Mm-hmm. And so my preferred side is that I kick up with my left foot. And so sometimes I will kick up with my right foot. And it's just so weird. And Denise described it as, it's like somebody else is doing your handstand for you. And I was like, yeah, that is exactly what it feels like. I can get up there and I can do it because I'm strong enough, but it's just like, who is controlling my meat sack? Yeah. It's like, it is not me. Or it doesn't feel like me. Anyway, speaking of being controlled by things other than you, let's segue smoothly into today's podcast topic.
Okay. What are we talking about?
Our robot overlords, Joe. I've already mentioned that.
I, for one, welcome our robot overlords.
Yes. I'm very polite to them, you know. I always say thank you because I think it's rude not to. Anyway, so yes, we're talking about AI for writers today.
Okay.
Because everybody has been shrieking about this online for several weeks, and as per usual, I like to slide in slightly grubby, well behind the curve. Yeah.
Nice.
But also I wanted to, do a little bit of research and using and that kind of thing. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about AI for writers. And we're not going to go into massive detail. It's not going to be particularly philosophical because I want to dig in and do a little bit more research on like the implications of future stuff, and I'm quite interested in where this might go. But what I wanted to do today was just give you a few ways that AI could be really, really useful for writers, and also reassure you that these robots are not going to come over here and steal your job.
Okay.
So yeah. But before we start, what are your kind of thoughts about AI and AI art and AI writing and AI generally? Are we in a simulation?
Probably.
Do you really think so?
Yeah, I mean, it's more likely that we are than we're not.
Is it though?
Yeah.
Is it though?
Yeah.
Is it though?
Yes.
Why?
Well...
Is this related to AI, or have I just gone off on a tangent?
No, you've just gone off on a tangent.
Okay. Well, we'll come back to that at the end.
More likely AI, my thoughts on AI. I think very useful, very cool. I think we're well beyond the point where the Turing test has been passed.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, I think ChatGPT is beyond the Turing test now.
That is true, actually, because I've been using it a little bit, and if I didn't know it was an AI, I wouldn't know it was an AI.
Yeah. If you had somebody else doing the same job, answering the same questions, and they were on the other side of the planet typing into a PC somewhere,
Considerably more polite than some of the people that I've spoken.
you'd be like, okay. You would, I don't think you'd know. I don't think you'd know.
So is the Turing test for, can it pass as human or for sentience? It's not for sentience.
It's not for sentience.
No.
It's. I think Alan Turing said something like, "We will have achieved AI, effective AI at the point where a reasonably competent person can't tell the difference."
Okay.
Something like that.
Am I reasonably competent?
Well,
Well,
debatable.
yeah.
Debatable. So how do people actually, people who haven't used any AI for anything, how do they actually just dip their toe in the water and actually get their hands on one?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, because I think if you're going to talk about AI, people need to know how to find one.
I feel like that should be a question that you should have. You're like the techie dude here. You do coding and shit. And make robots work. Joe spent the whole day in a factory today making robots do clever things.
Not really.
Well, not really clever things, just move shit around.
Pick stuff up and move it around.
Yeah. Well, okay, so if you go to chat.openai.com,
Yeah,
that's the one that most people have been talking about recently.
that gets you to an instance of ChatGPT.
Yes. What is ChatGPT, Joe?
It is just one training. It is a model that has been trained.
Okay.
It is a particular arrangement of software that has been trained on a particular set of data in order to do this task of answering your questions.
So who is doing this training? And the reason I ask that is because one of the things that concerns me, and I know a lot of other people, is that all of the people doing the programming of algorithms and all of this kind of stuff, they tend to be middle-class white dudes. Mm-hmm. And it causes genuine real-world problems. For instance, quite often, GPS things don't recognise female voices. Voice-activated stuff doesn't recognise female voices. One of my friends had a right ball ache getting her passport done because she's a dark-skinned black woman, and it just would not recognise her. It would not recognise her face, which is ludicrous. And so that it's been trained on, just one very narrow band of stuff. So who is programming this stuff, and how are they kind of mitigating that?
Whoever the hell wants to.
So this is open. Can you explain what open means, like the open AI aspect of it?
Well, no. This is just what they've called it.
Oh, okay.
It's just what they've called it.
So it's not like a open source thing.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, cool.
I think you can get an instance of it for yourself if you want to, and you've got the power to run it and do it.
And then you would train it yourself.
No, I think this is an instance that has been trained.
Okay.
I know that it's only been trained on old data, so there's nothing within the last 3 years within its knowledge.
Okay, interesting. So if we asked about something that happened last week, it would not be able to...
It doesn't know.
Can it not search the web? Does it not do that?
No, but it did. It did search the web and did. So it's... you're talking to me like I know what the hell I'm talking about. I don't really.
But you know more than me. I don't even know enough to ask the right questions, which is why I want to do some more research.
Yeah. My experience of using AIs and machine learning and all that kind of stuff is mostly in image processing.
Okay.
So one of the things we have to be really careful of is we have to categorize our data that goes into this thing really well. So we're training an AI or a deep learning system to recognize a good-looking pizza or something.
A good-looking pizza.
Yeah.
Ooh, that pizza looks good.
Because
a bit of that.
Yeah, because there's the classic engineering vision would be like, is it the right size? Is it the right color? Has it got the right number of bits of pepperoni on it? Is it, is the pepperoni evenly distributed? And you'd have to write all these rules and algorithms to define what a good looking pizza was. But every now and again, something would pass all those tests and you'd go, yeah, but that one looks a bit shit.
Right. And that's where AI comes in.
And that's where AI comes in. You can just kind of go, here's 1,000 pictures of good looking pizzas.
And then it will be able to make a judgment.
And then it will make a judgment like a person would.
Oh, okay.
But it's not rule-based. It's not counting necessarily the number of bits of salami or whatever. It's just going, yeah, that one looks fine.
So it's taking millions of data points and aggregating them for, okay, so I've now got a pretty good idea of what a decent looking pizza is based on all of these data points. This is what humans do, right? We just gather information and store it and we're like, that looks like a good pizza.
Yeah. And that's it. So the kind of rule of thumb we work with is if you can take an average factory worker and train them in a couple of days to do this task, whatever that task may be, then you can train an AI to do it.
Okay.
Quite easily. Quite straightforward.
Okay, interesting.
But yeah, the data that you put in has got to be good. If you give them 1,000 pictures of good pizzas,
Yeah.
and in amongst there's one picture of a Duff one, then that Duff pizza is going to be a particular example of, the machine's going to go, well, that looks like, okay, that's a good pizza. All right, it's different from the rest of them, but it's a good pizza.
Right, and then it will count that as a good pizza.
And suddenly you've got an anomaly,
right?
And you've got a problem, and every now and again you'll get pizzas going through that everybody thinks look bad apart from the AI.
Joe, are you hungry?
Yeah.
Me too. I'm bloody starving, and I was just like, you're talking about pizzas, and it's not helping.
So, but yeah, that's the kind of thing. It's you got to be careful about the data that goes into it. It's like you say, if all you put in is
garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah, if you just put white people's faces, then the system's going to be crap at working out black people's faces.
Yeah.
Or Asian faces or anything else. So yeah, you do have to be careful with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I guess that's where it's always gonna fail, is the human input of it, because because it's like if you've got people who are not thinking about anything other than themselves, which, let's face it, quite often is people in techie land.
I mean, what you can actually use an AI to kind of categorize your images, but you're then in the realm of disappearing up your own fundament while you try and figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah. So that's a really poor really low quality discussion of AI from two people who don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
One person who doesn't know what they're talking about, and one person who works a little bit with AI.
A little bit, yeah.
So probably knows more than the average person.
So my only experience really of this kind of ChatGPT type stuff, I've used it really successfully as an alternative to a search engine.
Yes.
It's brilliant at that kind of thing. If you want to know about a topic, I don't know, you want to know about bricklaying or lead work or building a dry stone wall or something.
You just type a question in.
You can just ask it.
Do you know what? This is what really...
It'll do a really good job of explaining it to you in actual language.
Yeah,
it's
and
quite cool.
This is what really excites me about it, because of my stupid brain. It's not a great brain, but sometimes I think it's stupid. It's like I will look for something, and then 5 minutes later I'll have 30 tabs open, and I'll be looking at 30 different topics because that one thing has sent me off on a bunch of tangents, and I'll be like, oh, I'm interested in all these things. And sometimes that's great. Like, sometimes I want that to happen, and I can... But now, with the ChatGPT, I can be like, I have not got time for that bullshit. So if I can just ask the question...
Give me a 200-word answer to this question.
Yeah. And that's what I'll get, and it'll be a place to start. And that's what I think is really, really important, because I know that a lot of people have been really worried about AI, and there's been a lot of kind of bitching about it, and a lot of oh, it's never going to do as good a job as a human writer. And it's like, well, actually it might do one day, but also that's not the point. Like the point is that we want to work with, like, people want to work with people. Mm-hmm. And for things like, writing, and I'm thinking here particularly about copywriting and marketing and content writing. Yeah, you know what? AIs are going to take some of it over. They just are. And you're going to have to live with that. But also, you're never going to be able to get rid of that human relationship connection, because if I'm never going to get an AI to, or I say never, I don't know, but I'm probably never going to get an AI to work with me to write, for example, an email sales sequence or a sales page or something like that, because I want to work with someone who gets me, like, who really gets who I am. Mm-hmm. And I think that an AI can do a really great job of research and, like, putting a first draft together, like, seriously putting a first draft together. But that polish and that personality is never, and that's the thing. It's like people who are worrying about AI kind of taking jobs away. It's like business owners and, writers and people. It's like, I want my personality to go into the piece of writing. And I think we're a long way away still from an AI being able to, like, look at me and go, oh, she sounds like this. And the quirkiness of it, and yes, it could probably emulate my voice, but it's not going to be able to. It's not going to be able to clone me.
It's not. There are other AI models where you can say things like, okay, answer me this question in the style of Einstein, or answer me this question in the style of Marie Celeste or something, and it'll...
And I have seen those.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting. And also, I think that is a really good exercise for writers, again, because it's like, if you want to learn a bunch of different styles of writing, ask that question to the ChatGPT and see what it comes out with. It's like, or put a piece of your own writing in and say, translate this into how Hemingway would have written it. for example. I think that's a really interesting thing to do because it can show you techniques that that you're like, okay, well, I can study other people's writing, but how do I make myself sound like that? And as long as you're not trying to become somebody that you're not, I think it's a really interesting creative writing exercise because it can show you how you can take a piece of writing and turn it into that style or that style or that style.
I think there's a huge opportunity for a lot of starting points and a lot of mundane work to be done by this kind of thing.
Yeah, like welcome sequences, or not even welcome sequences. I think they need personality, but like standard terms and conditions, stuff like that. Like, can you, like, I can just imagine, because I love reading terms and conditions when somebody has actually bothered to translate it into person speak instead of legalese bullshit. And I can just imagine like a ChatGPT making that just a bit more interesting and readable. It's like, take this, turn it into something that a normal person can read.
Yeah.
But without losing any of
without losing the actual legality of it.
Yes, and I think that could be, because if you ask a lawyer to do that, and like, no offense to lawyers listening, but most of you are terrible at this. If you ask a lawyer to do that, they will just come back with the same impenetrable nonsense. And like, I say nonsense because to them it's not nonsense, but to me it is. It's absolute nonsense. So I really like the idea of being able to give something like that to an AI and saying, keep all of the legal important bits, but make it readable. Because I think that's quite exciting. And it's not something, some people enjoy that, I guess, but I don't. I don't enjoy writing that kind of thing. So, but yeah, I just wanted to run through a few. We've mentioned a couple of ways that writers might be able to use ChatGPT. Hopefully one of them is one that people might not have even thought of, is like that other people's writing styles, like take a piece of your writing and, see what it would be like. But yeah, so a few ways that I've used it so far. I've used it to get a first draft of a post. Like, I've been like, okay, I want to write, like you say, 200 words on the subject of, why do I have to water my houseplants, for example. That's not what I wrote down.
Okay.
And it'll give me 200 words, and I'll be like, okay, that's very factual. Now I can Vicky it up a bit.
Yeah.
And I can turn it into the way that I would write it. I know that I'm fairly confident. And this is where I trust thing. I'm fairly confident that the facts are going to be right.
Well,
but you want to go and check them.
I have actually on specific little bits of software that I use, I've asked it some questions and it's got the answer wrong.
But if it's 3 years out of date...
No, it was wrong then as well.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, so I wouldn't trust too many facts.
Yeah, so go check your facts. And that's a good rule anyway. Like, literally, if you're writing something, spend a few seconds to go and fact check, even if, like... Yeah. The way I think of ChatGPT is kind of like a writing version of Wikipedia almost. Like you say, it's a good place to start. It's like, because people moan about Wikipedia, but it's a fabulous resource. Yeah, and you don't quote Wikipedia in an essay and expect to get away with it, but you do start there and then you go find other stuff. And I think that's how people can use AI. So yeah, if you've got a draft of something that you want to do and you're like, I don't even, I don't know where to start with this. I'm pressed for time. Give me 500 words on this. I think that's a good place to start. What else can we do? Content creation. People are using it to generate creative writing, like poems and short stories and things, and I think they're still a little bit bland at the moment. I feel like I could probably tell that either it's a bit of a boring writer or it's AI generated.
There's some talk actually of, I'm not quite sure how it would work legally, but making AI generated content or images or music or whatever, like recognizably generated by an AI, whether everything gets watermarked or has a disclaimer at the top of it or whatever. But there was quite an interesting discussion on the radio the other day about sort of highlighting when it's not a person talking.
Well, that kind of, and we're going off on a bit of a tangent here, but that kind of goes into the whole deep fake stuff as well, doesn't it? It's like, and I do think that's important because I think you should know where it's come from. And there's also all sorts of moral and ethical questions about AI generated art as well, because it's gathering info from the internet and people's intellectual property. And so I don't really want to get into that discussion today because it's just, I don't know enough about
it. It's an enormous topic about which we know nothing.
And I'm kind of torn because on the one hand, I'm quite excited about the possibilities of AI. And on the other hand, I absolutely don't want artists to get shat on because they're already shafted quite a lot. So anyway, but yeah, for writing, for the purposes of writing tools, idea generation. Really, I have used it for idea generation several times this week. I've been like, I I literally, like, brain cannot think of things. So it's like, give me 10 things to do with, give me 10 things to do with AI for writers, for example, if you're wondering where the ideas for this podcast came from. So yeah, give me 10 ways that authors can use AI. And so that's idea generation. Or it might be, I want to write about keeping sheep. Give me 10 topics. So it's just like another prompt tool.
Yeah.
Without having to, go and open a book up. And I don't think that's going to replace other ways of prompting, because there are other things that I enjoy doing. Like, I enjoy opening a book at a random page.
Yeah.
And using that as a prompt.
But sometimes you need to just get past the blank page and have someone, generate you a list.
Exactly.
Give you a bit of help.
And I've heard as well on a podcast yesterday, there was a guy talking about fiction and AI, and people are using it for really interesting things. Like, I've got this character, here is a scenario, here is like the background of where they're from. So you might say, oh, it's kind of like the elves in Middle Earth, kind of like the wood elves in Middle Earth mixed with, this mixed with this. Generate me a character. And it will come up with a character description. And some of them apparently are like, for this writer particularly, is like, some of them I really loved. Some of them were like totally off base, but you can keep iterating. And even if you don't like the finished thing, it's like, oh, that's a good place to start. So it can generate plot ideas. It can generate, if you're thinking about world building, descriptions of if descriptions of landscapes aren't something that you're particularly good at, start with an AI and get that to teach you. So I think there are all sorts of possibilities.
Yep. I do too. I think it's really interesting. It's going to be strange, and the world is going to change, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So a couple of other ways that you can use AI. Just quickly, research. Obviously, we've touched on that.
I find it such the interface of just being fed a couple of hundred words on the topic you've asked about, rather than some sponsored adverts, some things. Here's a bunch of links. Here's some videos. Here's some images. Here's some stuff. Here's a YouTube wormhole to fall into, all that other stuff, and just a couple of hundred words that explain what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah,
is great.
So yeah, I think it's really going to cut down research time, with the caveat, obviously, that you need to go check your facts.
Yeah, of course.
Language analysis is another thing it can do. So it can be used to analyse writing and provide suggestions for improvement, such as grammar, syntax, tone. There are already tools, obviously, that do that. I've got Pro Writing Aid, there's Grammarly, Hemingway app, things like that. But if you're already using AI for something else, then you can use it to help, proofread your writing, that kind of thing. It can also be a personal writing assistant, apparently. So I'm just reading what I have been given. So it can help writers by providing reminders, organising notes and outlines, and tracking progress.
Blimey.
The organising notes and outlines I find interesting. Like, I'm not sure how that would work. And so I'm like, Well,
I'm assuming that's not talking about ChatGPT, because...
No.
That's talking about some other structural AI out there.
Yeah, because I mean, the stuff that already does all of this, like, I get my reminders from Alexa and from other, Siri and other things like that.
Smart speakers, I think, is what you call them when you have one in the background and you can't say the words.
Oh, is it? Okay, smart speakers. I'm such a whatever, a non-techie person. I'm such a muggle. But the idea of organising notes and outlines is interesting. Tracking progress, there's obviously apps and software out there that does that. But yeah, interesting. What else can it do? Data analysis as well. So you can use AI to process and analyse large amounts of data, which, if you're someone like me who hates doing that could be really cool. Obviously you can get research assistants and data analysis people to do that as well. And that, depending on what you're doing, it might be better to have a person.
Yes.
Because
well, they'll bring you context, and they'll say they'll steer you in more sensible directions when you need steering. Yes,
because an AI won't be able to mind read in the same way that a person, not that people can mind read, but you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, pick up on...
I see what you're after, and what you're asking for is not the way to get it.
Yes, that kind of thing, yeah. Whereas an AI at the moment will probably just do its best with what it's got.
Yeah, just do what you ask it to do.
It can also assist with fact-checking as well. So assist non-fiction writers in verifying the accuracy of their information and sources, which it absolutely can do. But again, I would double-check those things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how this develops, and I also think it's going to be useful for people.
Yeah, I think people who don't write with a voice, I think people who write like dry technical manuals or write everything in third person and try very hard not to expose themselves to the world, I think they might be in trouble.
Do you know what I'm also interested in is how people are going to... Because I can just see this being used to cheat in exams.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's already happening.
I'm sure it is already happening. But, and like, I that boggles me because I'm like, why bother if you're just going to cheat? But I know that there are also people who are going to cheat in exams. So I'm going to be really interested to see how they're going to get around that, or how they're going to police that. Because, I mean, I think, to be honest, though, cheaters are going to cheat, right? There's always going to be people who are going to try and cheat the system.
Yeah, but that whole industry of selling essays to students who haven't done the homework is
that's dead now.
That's got to collapse, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, there's a whole little garage underground business that's going to disappear overnight.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's gonna be interesting.
But yeah, I think people need to expose their voice and be themselves in their writing. Otherwise, they will be overtaken by this stuff.
Yeah, and I think as well, people need to not worry too much about. I think there's been a lot of people thinking about AI from the other side. So like, oh, it's gonna take our jobs. It's gonna destroy.
Somebody else is going to use the AI to bugger up my life.
Somebody else is going to use it to bugger up my life, or it's just like, oh, nobody's going to buy art from human beings anymore. And I don't think after it's all settled down, I don't think that's going to be a problem for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because human beings are creative creatures that we create. That is what we do, for better or worse. And a lot of the joy of art comes from knowing that somebody has put time and effort into it, buying it and creating it. And so art is never going to stop being created. Just because there are robots out there doesn't mean people are going to stop creating art, because we will wither and die if we do. So from that point of view, keep creating your art, whatever it looks like. But I also think it's going to be a bit of a fad for a while. I think people will be like, oh, what's some AI generated art? But actually, I think after the novelty's worn off, what people really want is connection, is human connection. It's like, this piece of art has come out of that person's brain. Why? Why did they come up with that? Because for all of the technical skills that AI is going to have, it's not sentient. And so you can say to it, create me a beautiful landscape, but that's literally the reason for them creating it. And for me, the interesting part of art comes from, well, why did they paint that? Why did they choose to, like... Why did Munch paint the Scream? Like, what was in his head when he painted that fucked up picture? Do you know what I mean? And so that kind of analysis and the reasoning behind why people write something, why people paint something, I don't think that's going to go away. And I think after the initial kind of excitement over what we can do with AI dies down, I don't think there's going to be any less demand for human created art, because we're interested in what lies underneath it, not the art itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Right, need to wrap it up.
We do. That's a nice place to end. So what's the takeaway that's not that long?
I think it's, rather than being frightened of somebody else coming along and stealing your lunch, you should use the tools at your disposal.
Yeah.
Don't be frightened. Crack on with it. Embrace the future.
Be wary as well. Don't plant into it and be like, this is all amazing, because there are absolutely going to be bad sides to it, because there's downsides to everything. But I think go into it optimistically.
I think so.
And without a scarcity mindset. I'm seeing a lot of scarcity mindset out there about what it's going to do destructive wise. How about we look at it as, what can it do for us?
New opportunities.
Yeah.
New vistas.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So next week, don't know.
No idea. Blank space in the notes.
Blank space in the notes. The thing is, next week I am going to be in full-on launch mode for Microbook Magic Round 3.
Amazing.
Because we've just yesterday had the last call of Round 2, the last live call, and I've got some amazing microbooks on their way. I'm really excited.
Nice.
I'm really proud of everybody, and I'm really excited about the next round, because... maybe we could talk about microbooks next week, actually, because I'm really excited about the new software that I'm going to be using to gather everything together, and create a portal for making it easier. And before, I was doing kind of teaching on the live calls, but I'm actually going to create a bunch of short videos for all of my teaching points, put them in the library, and then they'll be there for people. So I can spend more time with the group of people, helping them with the actual writing and answering questions and things on the calls, which I'm really excited about.
Cool.
So if you would like to join the next round of Microbook Magic, please do, because I think this is the thing I'm proudest of.
It's good fun as well.
This is
like a, if you want to write your thing, then write your thing. It doesn't have to be a big, dry, monstrous, heavy task that is looming at you. It can just be a fun thing that you choose to do.
And that's feedback I've had off several people from the first round and the second round, is that yes, they have written their book or almost written their microbook, and that's all great, and they've got good writing skills, but actually what they found most valuable is they're like, I really found the joy in writing again, and that's what I wanted to do. It's like, yes, I want to help people write a microbook and put it out there, of course, but I really wanted to help people find the joy in writing again, and so I'm very excited about that.
That's cool.
It is cool. And if you would like to join, then check the show notes, because the link will be there. I can't give you I still haven't got a landing page for it. I've just got a Google Doc. There might be a landing page by the time. No, there won't. But
Probably not.
There might be a new website though by the time this goes out.
If you liked this podcast, go to iTunes, subscribe, helps us climb the ratings. 5 stars. Share a link with your friends. That was me cutting Vicky off because we were at 36 minutes.
Oh my God. Okay. You should see the face he's making now. And yeah, share this with your friends. Did you say that?
I did.
Oh, I'm really tired, mate.
Get a free writing prompt calendar at moxiebooks.co.uk /
because I haven't updated it.
Oh,
it's only the January there.
It's the January one. My goodness.
I'm too tired to do the February
don't do that then. All right.
I will put one up at some point. And thank you for listening. Thank you, Podfly, for making this sound better than it is. Thank you, Joe, for joining us.
No worries.
Thank you to you, dear listener, for listening. Stop making throat cutty things.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening. Check out the show notes at moxiebooks.co.uk / podcast for links to everything we've mentioned in this episode. Remember to subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. And if you'd like to hear more from Notes in the Margin, you can sign up to get regular emails from Vicky into your inbox at moxiebooks.co.uk / notes in the margin. We'll be back same time next week.